Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of the press conference review. I am here at windy Kirkby after Arne Slot has just spoken about the first game against Wolves this week. I'm calling this Wolves Week, kind of like Shark Week but with a little bit more rain. We did talk about Wolves, but not as much as you'd expect at a normal pre-match press conference. This was one of those days where we went off on quite a few different tangents into the wider conversation that lots of people are having about the state of the Premier League, and we'll be getting into all of that and what that means for the future of Liverpool going forward. But we start, as we always do, with injury news, and there's only really one story on that front. Florian Wirtz is still not available, as Arne Slot intimated he wouldn't be in the post-match press conference after West Ham on Saturday. As I said previously, it's a back injury, so you never really know exactly how long he's going to be out for, but there's no doubt it's a blow to be missing him for a third consecutive game. Liverpool did struggle in terms of their creative build-up, particularly in central areas against Nottingham Forest and against West Ham, but both games were ultimate victories, so Liverpool will be hoping that they can do the same once again. So let's get into those top takeaways, shall we? Top takeaway number one: Wolves Week can be like a European tie. Slot was asked on a couple of occasions about the weird quirk of playing the same team at the same venue twice in the space of 4 days and how it affects their preparation, and Slot didn't seem too bothered about it. In fact, as I've mentioned, he said he treats it like a European tie. Those are the other situations where you'll play a team twice in close quarters, although he did mention obviously the difference being normally it's sort of one at home and one away, and this time it's both away. But he gave the impression that he was looking forward to that particular test. The way he said it is obviously the analysts will look at the opponents before the head of the first game, and then they'll do all their takeaways and they'll give them to the team. But then for the second game, you only have to look at the game you just played, and the interesting things will be how much you expect to see the teams change, how much you expect to see formation and tactics change between the two games. I think for Liverpool, the way the squad is built at the moment, there will be some changes in terms of personnel just to keep people fresh, but in terms of tactics, I don't expect a massive amount of difference between the two games. The same could be said for Wolves and Rob Edwards. At the moment, they've got tactics that they're using against top teams, as I'll mention a little bit later on, that seem to be working, so there's no reason for them to change it, even unless there's some kind of heavy defeat in this first game. But given how Slot last season seemed to really enjoy taking on the information of what a team's giving them and then adapting to it, and particularly in the second halves of games, it seems like that's a skill that he likes to exercise, a muscle he likes to exercise in terms of his tactical acumen. So maybe it's something that he will take advantage of, and Liverpool can win both those games, because make no mistake, to win 2 games in the same away ground in the space of 4 days, particularly the form they're in at the moment, is no easy task. Top takeaway number 2, Slot still craves control. Now, this was one of the watchwords of last season about Slot and his version of Liverpool and the changes between what we saw from Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool looked to seek more control in the game, and for large parts of last season it worked for them very well. However, this season doesn't seem to be quite as easy, and David Lynch's question kind of alluded to that. Not just Liverpool, but all of the top teams in the Premier League seem to be losing that ability to control a football game. And again, this goes back to the wider questions about style and where we are in the Premier League in 2026 and set pieces, etc, etc. And Slot admitted the fact that it's nowhere near as easy to do it as he would have hoped it would be. The idea that you can win a set piece 80 yards from goal and it can still turn into a scoring opportunity, and there's very little an opposing coach can do to stop that. What he didn't do, though, was say that he's going to completely give up on the idea of control. He mentioned the fact that there are areas in which it can still be exerted, mainly controlling counter-attacks and the ability of an opponent to counter-attack, which I found fascinating, actually, because that's something that I think Liverpool have actually been lacking in recent weeks in particular. I've mentioned this before in one of my previous questions about the spaces to run into that Newcastle and Manchester City found at Anfield. And if you look at that game against West Ham, there were plenty of times where Crescencio Somerville in particular was able to drive on the counter-attack at Liverpool's defence. And I mean, there was one moment where he carried the ball 80 yards without being tackled. And then if you look at Wolves and their game against Aston Villa on Friday, both of their goals came from counter-attacks. So it is something that if Arne Slot is trying to drive control from, well, he is going to be very tested at it on Tuesday night. So it will be interesting to see how he feels about their ability to keep control after the game. Top takeaway number 3, modern life is rubbish. Or should I say modern football is rubbish, one for the Blur fans there. As I mentioned previously, Slot was asked quite a few different questions around the state of the Premier League, from VAR and refereeing decisions to set pieces and grappling at all the set pieces and all different kinds of things. And eventually he was asked about how he felt about where we are as a football league. Unsurprisingly, his answer was that this isn't the football of my heart. And I say unsurprisingly because this backs up everything he said about football, from his talk about watching Pep Guardiola to even when his dad was complaining last season about Liverpool weren't entertaining enough. He wants his team to entertain. He likes football that is entertaining. And he says now that when he watches Premier League games, he doesn't quite get as entertained. He finds it competitive, and that's where the interest comes. But interesting is not quite the same as entertaining. The interesting thing for all of this and me is that, again, it's not a surprise to hear him say any of those things, but it does kind of speak to why maybe Liverpool has struggled a little bit, because where we are in current football is not what Slot was hoping to see. It's not what he was intending to see when he went on his spending spree in the summer. When you bring in the likes of Florian Wirtz, a technical attacking player, you are hoping to be able to use that player to your advantage, but the league has gone in a very different direction. So physicality, set pieces, these are the things that seem to be making the difference at the moment. And Liverpool obviously have been very good at those things in recent weeks. They have leaned into it. The set piece revolution is not showing any signs of abating. Slot did mention the fact as well that, unlike some coaches, he did feel like it was important to adapt to whatever football is giving you. So he isn't going to be a stubborn autocrat, continue to ying while everyone else is yanging, which means that Liverpool will have a hope of being able to survive in this part of the season. The question is, what does this mean for the future? Slot intimated that this trend could continue for 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer. And obviously, if that is the case, then that's certainly going to have an influence on what Liverpool do in terms of the transfer market. What kind of qualities in a player they're going to prioritise? Are you going to see them bringing in more technical style players like a Florian Wirtz? Or, I mean, Slot has mentioned quite a few times that the best way to beat a low block is one-on-one ability and pace. So maybe that's the things that Liverpool are going to try and find. Look for some more speed in wide areas and maybe a bit more physicality in the centre. I'm not sure that that will necessarily be too much of a departure, but it might be a little bit of an interesting change compared to where Arne Slot in particular was hoping to take this team. And maybe the difference between the kind of football Slot wants to play and the kind of football Slot's been able to play has caused some of the malaise we've seen from Liverpool this season. And maybe working out those ideological kinks might actually help Liverpool compete better next season. Anyway, my question to Arne Slot was about something a little bit different, as you're about to find out. Hi Arne, when Wolves played against Arsenal and Aston Villa recently, their setup was quite narrow. They looked to congest the centre of the pitch, and considering you're going to be missing a creative talent in the centre like Florian Wirtz, does that put more emphasis on the wider areas to kind of create some creativity?
No, I don't think Wolves is an exception to that. I think all the teams, but that is not this year for the first time. All the teams try to protect the center. Why? Because the goal is in the middle. So it's quite smart to protect the middle as much as you can. So there's a lot of you rely a lot, especially if you have the ball a lot and you face low blocks. You rely a lot on your combination play on the sides. So fullback, winger, with the help sometimes of a midfielder. And I think that has become clear in modern football that wingers, fullbacks, are very influential in open play chance creation. Yeah.
Do you think that might have an influence on whether or not you do use Jeremy Frimpong for this game? Someone who has that trickery and, as you said before, is very good in one-on-one situations.
Yeah. No, that definitely goes through my mind. But the other thing is, we spoke about Jeremy, but you can also say the same about Joe Gomes, who's been out for a while, played 75 minutes for the second time. The last start he had before this weekend was against West Ham 3 or 4 months ago. So these are all the things we are which is our situation this season. And in the meantime, I think the players handled that really well.
There were quite a few questions I was mulling over today. There was one I was thinking about in terms of set pieces, in terms of Liverpool being very good at maintaining a second and third phase from a set piece, and there was one about the general away record, the fact that there's only 1 defeat in 10 away games after 4 on the bounce. But I went with this one. I went with the tactical angle because Wolves have been very, very similar in how they've attacked against Arsenal and Aston Villa, so the expectation is they'll try to do the same again with Liverpool. And as I've previously mentioned on other shows, the wide areas for Liverpool have been a bit of a concern. Both Cody Gakpo and Mo Salah have been down on production in previous seasons, and the idea of Liverpool being able to take advantage in wide areas is not quite as obvious as it had been maybe even last season. So it does put greater emphasis on it when the team you're playing against is giving you all the space in those areas, particularly when it's added to the fact that Liverpool won't have Florian Wirtz once again. You can quite easily see the way that Rob Edwards will set Wolves up will be to try and make it difficult for Liverpool to play through the centre, particularly without that creative fulcrum, and then Liverpool have to deal with it. I kind of tried to see as well whether or not that would influence Slot in terms of bringing back Jeremy Frimpong. And he did and didn't answer the question. I thought it was quite interesting because he didn't say that, yes, I'm definitely bringing in Frimpong. He did say one of the things he's considering is the potential for there to be more space in those wide areas, but it felt like at the moment with his right back he is still considering fitness and energy and freshness as the most important thing. But by that same rationale, he did mention the fact that Joe Gomez started his first game in a long time and he needs to be managed as well. So my suspicion is that we will see Jeremy Frimpong start the game on Tuesday, although who starts on Friday, that's another question. And one we'll have to answer in the next press conference review, which will be coming up on Thursday. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you for watching as ever. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? It costs you just 50p per piece of content. As you can see, I have the latest edition of What's Happening, episode 3 with the Athletics Carl Anker is up on my website right now. A really good chat about who is going to be in the fight for the Champions League places and who will miss out. Based on what's happening just in the last weekend, it really is a pertinent point, or quite a few pertinent points that Carl makes, so you will want to watch that. There was a match report that I wrote from the game against West Ham up there as well. There will be another one this week. I will be at Manchester City on Wednesday for the game against Nottingham Forest, so keep an eye out on Substack for that. And may well be down at Molineux for the second leg of Wolves Week. We'll have to wait and see on that. But for now, thank you for joining me. I'll catch you on the Lake Challenge. I'll catch you on the Anfield Wrap. I'll catch you back here on Thursday.